welcome to another episode of the Jackals and Tackles podcast. I am Brett McGilligan, your host, and I am once again joined by Henry Ollis-Brown. How are you?
I'm all good. How are you?
I am perfect. Thanks for asking. Now, to all you listening, we are going to be talking about the Six Nations. Surprisingly, arguably the biggest competition in rugby that comes around every year. Obviously, every 4 years, that's the World Cup, but the Six Nations is probably the biggest and gets the most excitement from people around the world. So, Henry, nice and easy question. How are you feeling for the Six Nations?
Positive, which probably is more than could have been said for the past few years as an Englishman. But yeah, I think sort of have as good a chance as any to win it, and maybe the pressure will tell. And you never want to go in as favourites, but it does sort of seem that England are favourites for a lot of people.
Um, I don't want to point out the obvious, but is it not England's year every year? Is that not what the media always say?
Yeah, that's what I always say as well. But
Yeah.
I think there's quite a buzz about the team now, which is good to see. Sort of, there's now depth coming through, even seeing the squad this week. Like there's so many players that are injured that are unavailable, but even the squad that's being put out is still top class. So yeah, I'm excited.
Oh, I without a doubt agree that you've got arguably some of the best strength and depth in the world at the minute in terms of what you're able to replace the front, like the first 15 with. Only South Africa and France probably can match that. Um, but the obvious thing is with England, what's going to get in the way? Is it going to be France or is it going to be arrogance as usual?
I, yeah, I think. I mean, I'm sure we'll come on to this in a little bit, but I do think it's between England or France this year.
Mm-hmm.
France are weirdly quite a bit of like a sleeper team in a lot of ways this year, despite being reigning champions. It's a really weird one where maybe it's because, English fans see English players week in, week out in the Prem, and you don't really get much access to the top 14. So
Yep.
maybe it's that, but yeah, yeah, it's confidence. I think that I can't see a grand slam from England, but you know,
Who beat you?
this is the problem. I think it'll either be Ireland or France. I can
Ireland won't beat
see
you
that's the
in
thing,
Twickenham.
but then at the same time, it's the exact sort of banana skin that England will fall for. And then
Hmm.
other than that, I could see a Grand Slam decider, England versus France, both teams going for it, and that would be
Yeah,
last game of the tournament. Would be a hell of a game to watch.
it would be. I still think it's going to be an incredible game if both of these have a shout of winning it. Um, the obvious caveat to the English question is you have an awful recent record against Scotland. Have you fixed that with one win last year? Or even then, should you have won that? Finn Russell probably will look back and go, I probably should have won the game for Scotland. So, I mean, and many people forget, Van der Merwe, he had what? A mile to run into, and he decided to put the ball down, make the kick easier. Like,
Yeah, I think that's probably the real danger game, as it always is. But I think now that we've sort of broken the buck, got that win, I'm hesitant to say, but I think England probably will do the business against Scotland. I wouldn't bet my house on it if I had a house, but I think now that that trend's broken, I think Scotland's sort of mindset has changed quite a lot, and sort of the attitude was always, oh, well, at least we can beat England, whereas now that's not the case.
one win and Scotland are irrelevant. Okay, I see how it goes. See when I mentioned English arrogance? Doesn't exist, that does it? Right. So we've talked about England. Look, we've spoken about this. In terms of last year, arguably England was one of the form teams. Now, I've heard a lot of people talk about the fact that they didn't face the other form team, which was South Africa, which has given England this confidence. Because I think South Africa would put you back in your place, as they put everyone in their place. Is that a fair argument, or are you being like, no, England deserve to be talked about very well at this minute in time?
I think both things can be true, can't they? Like you can say, yeah, they've got the results which have been all deserved. England are probably, definitely top three form teams in the world right now. Maybe
Yep.
of those three, the most exciting in a lot of ways because it's sort of come out of a real pit, whereas France have been fairly consistent over the last few years. Maybe sort of arguments they could be dropping off, but we'll see this year. South Africa have just been at the top for so long that it's almost, I wouldn't say getting boring, but it's sort of getting to the point where you're just sort of used to it, is what you expect. So I think England, if anyone could beat South Africa, England would be the team. But if they were to go against each other, I still would probably back South Africa.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Now, let's move on to the real favorites, which is France. Uh, they no, like you laugh, but they're the reigning champions. They have got Dupont back as well. They've probably arguably got the most informed fly half in the world at the minute in Jalibert. They are a serious side with a serious squad. Now, obviously, last week there was shocks that went through France with the admission of obviously Gregory Aldrit, Fiku, and the last one is escape me, the winger,
Damien Penaud.
Demi Peno. Obviously, he's shaking it up. What do you feel about France and their chances?
I mean, the at the time of recording, squad's got released this morning, and yeah, looking at that team, it is a dangerous team. There's a few selections where it sort of raised my eyebrows a little bit. Charles Olivon in the second row is it's interesting, it's dynamic. This is one I quite like because he is a line out option. He is that sort of player that can sort of play across the entire back five. Obviously, having Dupont back is huge. Jalibert at 10, that's going to be a proper battle. Him and yeah, him and Prendergast, sort of two extremes of sort of some people saying obviously
Yep.
Jalibert should be the incumbent. People saying that Prendergast shouldn't be the incumbent, but that's going to be sort of quite a clash of styles in a lot of way. But then, as we are saying about Peno, like he rumors are he's a terrible trainer.
Hmm.
So that could have influenced the decision. But if you didn't know that he had been dropped, like if sort of that name had somehow escaped you, you look at the team and you wouldn't realise he's not there in a weird way. Because you got
Yeah.
Louis Bilberry, who's was the player of the tournament last year. And then you got Theo Sugbe, who again another fantastic young player coming through. Any team love to have that sort of player and that sort of talent.
Anyone would love to have that ability to drop those three players. Now, obviously, there was a lot of stuff going around about Aldrit. Like, he's not been in form this year because La Rochelle's not in form. But he was captain of France last year when Dupont was absent. How do you drop someone with such leadership qualities from the squad entirely? Do you know what I mean? Gail Ficou, the same. He would have become only the third French player to make 100 caps had he played two more games as Six Nations. Like, the longevity he had, not to even be in the squad again. The fact that they could just do this at will. Now, obviously, if it goes wrong and they finish, let's say Ireland do the impossible and beat them, I think people will be calling for Galtier's head.
I think so, but it is sort of the bold kind of call that you need to make at this point in the World Cup cycle. I know, obviously, Eddie Jones did it with England, and it nearly paid off, sort of dropping sort of your more experienced players that you kind of know you can call upon later on if there's an injury, if there's something where you get to the tournament and you go, all right, we need an experienced player. So bringing up those younger players right now, probably and getting their confidence up, making them into proper starters, it's probably the right call because like a year and a half down the road, if one of them gets injured, you've got a custom built replacement ready to go. Even if it's a difficult call, and even though it's a risky call, it's actually, if it works, it's a perfect call.
Well, I actually think, and sadly, people can disagree. I think the Penno's French career is done. So I do. I think the fact that obviously there's rumors, as you say, about the training. There's also the comments that Bordeaux's head coach made about how he's the top try scorer and now he wants to become the top assist scorer. Um, like that kind of tells you his attitude, if you get me. Which I don't think Galtier takes well. I think Galtier is very if he doesn't like you, he cuts you straight away. Which look is probably why he's been relatively successful because don't forget, Galtie's been in charge for quite a while. And although he's managed to win their first Grand Slam after years upon years, Ireland have probably been more successful than France in this period. Obviously, you have England and Wales win Six Nations in that time as well. Like, Galtie has to kind of, it's either win the next two Six Nations. I think he'll be gone after World Cup, but will he be considered a success if he doesn't win a World Cup?
I think if he wins the next two Six Nations without World Cup, then probably would be. But
Okay.
again, like if they get knocked out embarrassingly in the group stage, although the new format means that that's probably less likely, then it could be a whole like Stuart Lancaster sort of situation where you can have success beforehand, but it ultimately doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Well, haven't seen Stuart Lancaster's career since. That still stains him,
Mm.
that England record, because I think there's a hesitancy of national teams taking him, which I think is ridiculous because I think he'd be a great coach for, let's say, Wales, for example, or Scotland might come of use. But anyway, moving on past France, who, look, I think France will win it. I think they'll win the Grand Slam, mainly because they're playing England at home. I think that gives them the slight advantage. They're also playing Ireland at home, which is quite advantageous. Um, shall we move on to Scotland next? What are your thoughts on Scotland?
They're a really difficult sort of team to judge right now. Like, where are they? Like, there's so many calls for whether Gregor Townsend should go, whether he should stay. I don't think there's any denying that he's a great coach. We've had this conversation before, but you know, they're not getting any better is the problem. It was sort of a couple of years ago was their year where they couldn't really like push. But now I'm kind of looking at it going like success is if they beat England. Other than that, they might pick up one or two wins. I can't see them really beating Ireland. They've not had any success against Ireland over the last few years, and particularly playing Ireland away. They're not going to beat France realistically unless something crazy happens, which admittedly often does in France-Scotland games. Italy, yeah, I think they probably should beat Italy, but again, Italy are on the rise. And then Wales, if Wales do get a win, I think that will define their tournament, but we'll come on to that in a little bit.
Yeah. For me, I was going to ask you this and put this to you. Technically, Glasgow finished as the top seed in the Champions Cup. Currently, Glasgow are at the top of or near the top of the ERC. Arguably, one of the best players in the Premiership is Finn Russell. Then you got players from Scotland playing for elite teams in France, like Toulouse and Toulon. And obviously, you've got the back at you got the forward at Perpignan as well. So, like, are they kind of slowly building to something behind the scenes and we aren't realizing it? Because look, the Scottish weirdly have annoyed me more than the English in terms of, oh, we're just getting close, we're coming about, we're getting there, we're getting there. They finished third once under Gregor Townsend in the last 5 years. And that was obviously not deemed a success because, look, like they want to win it, but they have to be able to finish first in the top two before finishing in first. Like they've not shown that consistency that they need to win it.
Yeah, I think
But I feel they are building.
it's a sort of lack of cohesion almost within the team and sort of within the union. And maybe it's sort of having one really strong team and sort of Edinburgh's not necessarily doing as well. But and then having so many players based abroad, sort of in England and France. But yeah, it just it's not meshing on the international stage really.
No, it hasn't. And look, maybe that is down to coaching, maybe that is down to everything. But I do think that this year is the year that look, if they're going to cause shock and surprise, it's this year because you've got the English, forgive me if I'm wrong, being arrogant, being like, we're going to beat them. And that's the year that Scotland will beat them, is when England are high on their wee horse. You've also got Ireland at probably their weakest for the last 15 years, nearly. Maybe 12 years, because 2013 was really bad. But you've got that mentality. The thing you talk about that mentality thing, I really worry if Scotland beat Ireland in Ireland because they got the World Cup next year, and Scotland will finally be like, well, we beat them already, and we beat them in Dublin. There's no scare factor anymore.
Yeah, I think sort of Scotland are probably the one team that I think could probably finish anywhere between second. I'm not going to say they're going to win the tournament. They could finish anywhere from second to sixth. Like if they beat Italy away, that's a good start. Then they got England at home, that's even better. And then playing Wales should be, if you're on form, be a third win. Then you got the confidence against France at home, and then Ireland at the end. Like it's one of those ones where it could be a real snowball to get really positive results, but at the same time, you lose to Italy at home, then you lose to Italy away rather. You lose to England at home. You could struggle against Wales on the road if you've got those two losses on your back already, and then it's France and then it's Ireland. Like anything could happen.
Yeah, no, you're right. And in regards to that, like, look, I say I'm not confident in, I'll say Scotland, but I do think that people have seemingly just written them off as the fourth or third team, as that's it. But look, as I say, we'll see. They're more a wait and see team, as you say. So we'll take it from there. Now, anyway, let me know what do you think before I start rambling on about what I think about Ireland. What do you think about Ireland?
I don't know. I think we've talked for
Not a good
so
answer, lad.
long. We've talked for so long about sort of whether Ireland can build this sort of strength and depth, and I think they're starting to do that now. Like as sort of young players coming in, but I sort of see the squad that was released today, and I do think it's a little bit weak. Like, and maybe it's injuries, maybe it's sort of trying to build those players up. But sort of, I look at your loose heads, for example, and you got Jeremy Loughman, Michael Milne. I don't see that as a pack. I don't see them as loose heads that are going to dominate against France. And then you look down the team, there's still the Sam Prendergast question still hasn't been answered. Yeah, you've got the likes of Craig Casey on the bench. It's not a bad bench when you've got James Ryan, when you've got Jack Crowley, Ronan Kelleher. They're solid players. But there's just a few weak spots where I'm sort of going, just other teams have got better players individually. I think that could really come back to bite Ireland.
Look, again, I think you have to take into consideration the kind of Irish thing at the minute. Look, I completely agree with you. The front row, we are hampered by injury. Like, but the thing is I do worry long term because Tag Furlong clearly his body's just there's something going on there because he's only able to play 7 or 8 matches a season now. If he wants to correct me and he hears this, he can prove me wrong. Finlay Bealham, great player on the bench, but he is now 34, 35. It's not as if he's a long term option. Then you've got obviously Andrew Porter out injured. Andrew Porter, who's been consistently there throughout. Um, then you obviously had a few injuries to McCarthy, Paddy McCarthy, which was unfortunate. But look, I think that's the main issue. I think Cian Prendergast, he's been playing well for Connacht. He played well for Ireland. He's a captain of his province. He's clearly got something in him. Give him time. I think that's all right. I think, as you said about France, blood and new players, he's the one you need the blood. Sam Prendergast was handed the keys, which I completely disagree with, but it's done, so we kind of have to accept it. Um, then you've got Jacob Stockdale coming back in, which I think he fully deserves. But is it too late for a 29-year-old to recapture his place? I don't know. Osborne hasn't played much rugby, injury problems. And then a lot of the team have been out of form. The Lions, like everyone keeps blaming the Lions for it. That they're tired, they haven't had any rest. Well, do you know what? When you send them back to the provinces, give them time off. I know the provinces need to do what they need to do, but they do seem to be able to rotate well enough in terms of you don't need to play them every week. Um, but for me, there's you're talking about getting players in. I think the players they brought in are decent. They proved at provincial level they're decent. They need to prove at international level that they can make the step up. And the question is you'll never know if they make the step up until something like this. You can't just keep playing them. And forgive me for saying Italy or Wales. You can't just keep playing against Italy or Wales because that's not a proper test. It for and I say a proper test for where Ireland want to be. Do you know what I mean? I think I think you have to just look at Ireland and look at them and go, right, this year is do or die in terms of can they finish third? Can they put performances in away from home against England and France and potentially still one? I think there's potential to do that. Like you look at the way England stopped them on the Grand Slam when England were poor. They had a game plan and it disrupted them. And that's all it took. Can Ireland do the same to England? I hope so, but I doubt it. Um, but yeah, that's my thought. I think they'll finish third or fourth. And it all comes down to that Scotland game in the hopes that Scotland and Ireland have both only won two and hope that they try and win a third and that be it. I don't know whether you agree or whether you disagree with what I've just said.
I've looking at my sort of mock of sort of the game results and sort of what I'm expecting. I do have Ireland down as third. I think they're probably not with their injury problems and sort of just with where they are at the moment. I don't think they're probably championship contenders. I think it could happen if England and France have a bit of a nightmare tournament, but I think they're sort of just leading that sort of next level.
Oh, I would agree. The only thing is, and I know it's possible, whenever Wales won that championship under Pivac, it's always possible for one decent, and I say decent team because Wales weren't great, they were decent, to sneak in and take it away. It's always possible. It's unlikely, but I can't see Ireland doing it.
Well,
But shall
especially
we
when you've
move
got
on
three
to
home games.
there are three home games against the weaker nations, arguably. So I don't know. Whenever you travel away to France and England in a competition, it's not easy. It's not easy. Like I'd rather have them at home and go away to the others. But anyway, moving on. Shall I go to, let's be honest, the fifth best team, which is Italy? What are your thoughts and feelings on Italy?
Again, it's sort of a bit like what I was saying about Scotland. I can see it going either way. They've had some really good progress. I've been championing that they could be that for so many years. I remember when I was 14, 15, I was going to my mates like, this year is like Italy, oh, they're getting better, I promise. Like they're not getting pumped, they're not going to get pumped every week. And eventually they do. But now they've turned that screw and you know, they're at that point. I worry though that will they be able to put that into actual results? I think they'll be able to prove that they can contend and have some close games. I think Scotland up first. I probably do back Scotland, and then I can't see them beating Ireland away. Can't see them beating France away. Can't see them beating England at home, and then you got Wales for what could be a wooden spoon decider. I think it could they could get three wins out of that. But I think what's more likely, I can see them, despite not being the worst team in the tournament, I can see them picking up the wooden spoon.
Yeah, I agree. This would be the year of all years that they would beat England. That would just be the icing on the cake. Um, no, for me, look, Italy have a similar issue to Ireland at the minute, where they have quite a few key players injured. You've got Capowazzo, you've got Negri, you've got Vincent, you've also got what do you call him, Tommaso Allen. They're all injured. They're all key players, key to the way they play in terms of take the points, get the scores, and then try and score tries from there. I think that will be key in this first game, particularly. Hopefully, by the time they play Wales, they'll have those players back or some of the players back. I think that's why Scotland are probably bigger favourites than what they should be. Because Scotland don't seem to have any massive injuries to key players. So I do worry for Italy in that regard because once, as you say, maybe two early wins go in, does it start to snowball in terms of God? And the issue is I agree with you. I think what Caicedo is doing with them is great. I think he's really turning the screw. But how many years can you just constantly go, we're losing, we're losing, we're losing, and just constantly be like, oh, look, we're playing better rugby. Yeah, but you're still losing. and they've got a World Cup next year. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think he'd be sacked unless they get hammered by Wales or badly beaten by Wales because it's just too little time to bring someone else in to change it. But I have hope for them that they can do okay, but I just feel the injuries will hold them back. That's my view.
Yeah, I think it's just they're showing what they can do, but they're sort of a couple of years off, maybe 4 years off, being able to have that real strength and depth. Because we've seen it year after year with the under 20s really competing, and now that they're starting to bring back their sort of Italy A program or emerging Italy, or whatever they're calling it this year, it's sort of showing that they are like successfully developing. It's just sort of having the time to let that really stretch out where you have sort of 28, 29 year olds that are experienced winners.
Yeah, 100%. And look, Benetton have been doing well as well. They've also, I'll be fair to Italy, they've been also very smart in recruiting players who have Italian heritage and that kind of way. I think it's the right way to go because they want to bring in players who are of that quality, who are ready to play, who aren't getting the chance. Like, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you say yes? Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
Like, I think I think Wales would love to do that at the minute. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's
Like,
what Scotland have got good by doing.
exactly is what Ireland got good by doing to begin with. Ireland always did that. Ireland have always looked at where they can kind of get a player and bring them in. Sure, they've obviously got that South African lad they brought in now because he's got Irish heritage and they're trying to get him ready. But look, shall I move on to the team that everyone has kind of put last because one of their problems outside the rugby pitch, and two because of the problems on the rugby pitch.
Yeah, I saw. I think it was what was it Rugby Joe did their sort of predictions, and their like sort of wild prediction was that Wales could go on strike, and that like will be sort of what they think the out of the box thing will be, and I can see it happening. I don't. I think they probably got closer in previous years when there's been all the issues with player contracts. But if stuff with Ospreys and everything doesn't get sorted out sort of efficiently and quite cleanly and clearly, it could be an option. They've threatened it before. But I think, yeah, I think you look at the fixtures. England first up at Twickenham, I think probably is you don't want to give Wales or don't want to discredit Wales too much, but probably is a bit of a gimme for England. But at the same, I was saying to someone the other day that if you underestimate Wales, they're gonna give you a real scare. But if you sort of estimate them correctly, you'll beat them by 50 points. There will be no in between.
I don't want to say that happened to Ireland last year. Ireland very almost got beat by Wales because they underestimated them. And you're 100% right. Look, I don't think there is much to say about Wales. I think they need a new generation to come through. I know they got lot of young players, but even at underage level, they haven't let the world of light, and they kind of need to. Otherwise, they could be here for quite a few years. And look, I made a prediction on my own, saying Wales would finish bottom. What were the responses? Ireland's going to be there in 2 or 3 years. Da, 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 da. And I kind of sat there going like, you're kind of right. Ireland will drop a bit. I do agree with that, but not to this level because Ireland are well run in their country. They have young players coming through their systems. Might not be the levels that they have now, but they will not be that low. So I don't know. I think Wales are in trouble for years.
I think they are, but at the same time, in my predictions, maybe I've been sort of a bit optimistic and kind of giving it a bit much, but I can see them getting fourth. I can see them
Why?
like that. They'll lose against England potentially. They'll likely lose to France as well at home, but then they've got Scotland at home, which is if Scotland aren't on form, if they underestimate them, as we were saying, that's a really winnable game. And then again, Ireland away is probably a bit out of reach at the moment, but then Italy at home as well. Like that's two winnable games at home. I don't see why, if things go to plan, why it can't happen. I could equally see sort of real unity from the players, which we haven't really seen in Wales. They got Lewis Summit back. That's quite a big sort of spark. Not necessarily in terms of the quality player, but just sort of the excitement around the team. And so I think, yeah, if they can get those two wins, and there'll be two games that they'll really target, then I think fourth is a genuine possibility.
See, the only thing I would say about that Scotland one is I think with the way Scotland attack, that when Wales conceded nearly, I think it was about 200 points in November, I don't think their defence stacks up to hold back a Scotland or France attack or England. I personally think against Ireland, they have a better chance with their injury problems and the way that Ireland attack. It's just not as, they don't get the ball as wide as quick. And with Italy, because Italy are all about kind of repetitive attack and kind of breaking them down slowly before moving it wide. Whereas I just feel Scotland will be like, look, offload, let's go, bang, 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 and score a lot more at will. So I feel like I understand why you're saying that, and I understand why you're saying like they can definitely beat Scotland at home, but I just think that the tactics that are from what I saw in November kind of hampers them. Now, don't get me wrong, quite a few of those points were scored by South Africa. So, like, I could be slightly wrong, but still, to concede that many points tells there's obviously huge. Plus, they're obviously missing some key players too. Um, what do you call the lion? Morgan. They're missing Morgan through injury. That's a big loss.
100%.
So, what do you do? Like, do you know what I mean? But look, so you've got. Let me guess. Can you give me your just your list?
So in sixth, I've got Italy. Fifth, I've got Scotland. Fourth, Wales. Third, Ireland. And then I'm sort of hedging my bets here. I'm going second, England, and first, France. Partially just so that if England don't win, I can say I was right. And if they do, then I'm still a winner.
Okay, sure. That's the English arrogance as always. No, I would obviously just go with the predictable to an extent. I would say Wales bottom because I have faith in Italy. I would then have Italy second bottom. Sadly, as much as I'd love to see them cause an upset on day one, I think it's just a bit too much of the injuries. I then would go for Scotland fourth, just because of the mental factor in Dublin. Then Ireland third, second would be England, and first France, just because of the strength of France, and then playing England at home. I think if it was at Twickenham, I think it might be a different story.
Just can't see an England Grand Slam happening. Like England are, maybe it's being a bit pessimistic, but I think England are due a loss. It's a sort of loss that probably actually work better in the long run and sort of kind of ground the team as well going towards the World Cup. But that's maybe making excuses a bit too
Oh, that's right.
early.
That's right. You've already you've moved past winning the Six Nations. Say, oh, we're going to win the World Cup. It's grand. We need one loss. We'll win the World Cup.
Well,
Right.
last time was in
I see.
Australia.
Yeah. Exactly. No, that's just how it works, isn't it? But look, Henry, we'll leave it there, and I appreciate you taking the time to come and join us. Thank you very much.
Yeah, pleasure doing it once again.
And thank you to all who listened. Hopefully you enjoyed the chat. Obviously, let us know that we're completely wrong and that we don't know what we're talking about in terms of our predictions because they're predictions. No one ever gets them right, do they? So, once again, thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.